Okay, hi everybody. This is Ms. Mathis, and as promised, I'm gonna go ahead and teach you all section 1.7, and section 1.7 is all about inequalities. So the major topics that we're gonna cover are linear inequalities, three-part linear inequalities, quadratic inequalities, and rational inequalities. Okay. Before we get started, there are going to be some words that I'm going to use throughout the video, and I just want to make sure that you all have a clear understanding of some key vocabulary words. The first one is an inequality. An inequality is just something that says one expression is greater than or equal to, less than, or less than or equal to another expression. So pretty much it's the same thing as an equation, except for it has an inequality symbol instead of an equal sign. I'm also going to use the word interval. Interval is just a space between two things. Mathematically, it's just that, an interval could be something like 2 to 5 or 3 to infinity or negative infinity to 0. Anything, it's just the space between two things. And usually we use numbers to express that in math. Interval notation is the notation that we use to represent an interval, and we do it as a pair of numbers. So a lot of times you'll have parentheses or brackets, and they'll have numbers inside of them. The next thing that I'm going to talk about, I'll also use the term open interval or closed intervals. Open intervals are expressed with parentheses, and we use them when the endpoints are not included in the solution set. So if I say that, you can't have 2. So that would not, you can have any number greater than 0, but it can't be 2 or go past 2. That means 1.999 is in the interval, but 2 is not in my solution set, so that will be an open interval. Closed interval is when the endpoints are included. So if I can say you can do anything from 0 and up until 2, and you can include 2, you can have 2, but you can't go past 2. Okay? So, like if I have $2 in my pocket and, I'm buying something, I can spend all of my money. I can spend up to $2, so I actually include that 2 in my money, but so that would be a closed interval. And then the break-even point is basically when your revenue equals your production cost. So usually we talk about that in business, like let's say I put $1,000 into a business endeavor. My break-even point is when I sell enough products or services to give me back the money that I invested into it. Okay, so now we're ready to start. So if you open up your books to page 137, I'm going to just go through the examples. I'm going to also give you example problems. So at some points in this video, I'll say, you try, and then at the you try point, I want you to pause the video, try it, and then immediately afterwards I'll give you the solution. So the first thing that we're going to solve is just a basic linear inequality. So when you're solving linear inequalities, you treat this sign, in this case it's a greater than sign, just like you would treat an equal sign. Okay? So how would you solve this normally? So normally my first step would be to move this 5 to the other side. And how I do that is I would subtract 5 from both sides. Okay? So after I subtract 5 from both sides, I'm left with negative 3x. This cancels. Is greater than negative 12. Okay? Now the next step when I'm solving this is the object is to get x by itself, so I have to divide by negative 3. Now, this is a really great example problem because there's one caveat to solving linear inequalities. Whenever you divide or multiply both sides by a negative, so dividing or multiplying by a negative, you must flip the sign. Only when you're dividing or multiplying by a negative do you have to do this. Otherwise, your sign is going to stay the same. So I'm just left with x. Okay, my sign is going to flip because I divided by that negative and 4. So the solution to this one would be the solution set of all x such that x is less than 4. Okay. So that's the solution. That's everything less than 4. Okay. Now, if I wanted to write this solution in interval notation, everything less than 4 would be 4, 3, 2, 1. If I'm using integers, but it's everything smaller than 4. So this would be all the way from negative infinity up until 4. And this is an open interval set because it says less than 4. That means that 4 is not included. So whenever it's not included, remember we use it with parentheses. And also whenever you have an infinity, if it's positive or negative infinity, you're always going to put a parentheses around that end. So this is the normal notation. This is interval notation. And by normal, I mean the set builder notation. Okay, so now we're at the part of the video where you can try. So solve negative 2x plus 7 is less than negative 5. So please press the pause button in the video and try it on your own. All right, hopefully you got that your solution was x is greater than 6. Now, if you wrote it in interval notation, you would have gotten this. Okay, so now I'm on page 138 at the bottom, and we're going to go through example 2. Example 2 says, solve and give the solution in interval notation. So again, we treat this less than or equal to, this inequality symbol right here, just like you would treat a linear equation. So first, I'm just going to get rid of the 4. Okay, I'm subtracting 4 on both sides. Once I do that, I'm just left with negative 3x is less than 7 minus 4 gives me that 3 plus 2x. Okay, now I'm going to move over this 2. So I get negative 5x is less than or equal to 3. Now I'm going to divide by negative 5. And remember, when we divide by negative 5, we divide it by a negative. So that means that my sign, again, is going to flip. So I get x is greater than or equal to negative 3/5. Okay, if I want to write, it says give the solution in interval notation. So everything bigger, that means I'm going towards the positives, is going to be bracket, or equal to means that this is a closed interval, not an open interval. So I use my bracket and go up to infinity. Okay, now you're going to try the next one. So I want you to solve this equation that says 3 minus 4x is greater than or equal to 2x plus 8. And I want you to write your answer in interval notation. So go ahead and pause the video and try to solve it. hopefully you got negative infinity, comma, negative 5 over 6 with a bracket. Okay, the next example problem is a word problem, and I love word problems, so we are definitely going to have them on the test. I am right on page 139, example 3, and it says, if the revenue and cost of a certain product are given by R equals 4x and C equals 2x plus 1,000, where x is the number of units produced and sold, at what production level does R at least equal C? Okay, so you want R to at least be C. So what this is saying is R is at least equal to C. So R, I want the minimum. So it's at least on minimum. So that means it's greater than or equal to C, right? Remember your inequality symbol, the little dot points to the smaller one and the big side points to the bigger one. So I want R to at least be C. So that means this is my minimum value that I want to see. So now that I know that, here's R right here. Here's C right here. That means I can start plugging in some things. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. So that would give me, I'm going to plug it in over here because of space. 4x is greater than or equal to 2x plus 1,000. This is an inequality, so now we've reduced this whole word problem down to an inequality, and we know how to solve this. So we're going to subtract 2x from both sides. And that'll be 2x is greater than or equal to 1,000. Let me rewrite that over here. Then I'm going to divide by 2. It's not negative, so I don't have to worry about flipping my inequality. So that means my break-even point is 500. Okay? Once I produce and sell 500 units, I will break even. So my interval of interest is from 500 up to, sorry about that ugly infinity, but oh well. So 500 up until infinity. So as long as I produce and sell 500 units, I broke even and I go into my profit after I've sold over 500 units. Okay, so again, we're at the point where you can try an equation and you can see if you understand. So this says if the revenue and cost of a certain product are given by R equals 45x and C equals 30x plus 5,250, where x is the number of units produced and sold, at what production level does R at least equal C? Okay, that would be 350. 350 is your break-even point, and you start making profits when you go beyond that 350.